Hey everyone, ready to dive into some seriously cool stuff about habits?
I know I am.
Today we're taking a deep dive into Atomic Habits by James Clear,
Awesome book.
but we're going deeper than just like a bunch of tips and tricks. We
Yeah.
really want to understand the core principles of how habits work.
Yeah, like how those habits shape us over time. It's like having an instruction manual for your brain, kind of.
But way more fun than that sounds. One of the most fascinating ideas for me was the plateau of latent potential.
Oh, yeah, that ice cube analogy.
Where you're working so hard at something.
Putting in the effort.
You're like heating up that ice cube, but you don't see any change
Not for a while.
until suddenly you hit that critical temperature
Hmm,
and it transforms.
totally. And that's what's so sneaky about progress sometimes.
It can happen kind of invisibly.
Behind the scenes.
Then suddenly it's like, wow, where'd that come from?
Exactly. And I think that's why a lot of people get discouraged.
They give up too soon,
They're putting in the work. They're on that plateau.
but they're not seeing the results yet.
Right. So they think it's not working.
Which brings us to that whole myth of the overnight success.
Oh, for sure.
Like the world sees the ice cube melting,
A dramatic change.
but they don't see all that gradual heating that led up to it.
All the work behind it.
And that's why understanding this is so powerful.
I think so.
Because even when it feels like nothing's happening,
You're not seeing the results yet.
you know that consistent effort is building towards something.
It's like you're laying the groundwork,
So we've got those tiny changes adding up over time.
little by little.
But Clear also talks about how lasting habits aren't just about actions.
It's deeper than that.
They're tied to our identity.
Who we believe we are.
It's not enough to just want to be a certain way.
Right.
You have to believe you already are that person.
He uses that example of someone who's really good at taking care of their teeth.
Oh, yeah, like dental hygiene.
It's not about having white teeth as a goal.
It's deeper.
It's that they see themselves as the kind of person who takes care of their teeth.
They take pride in it.
And that shift in identity makes the habit stick.
It's not about forcing yourself to do something you don't want to do.
It's becoming the person who naturally does those things.
So then the question becomes, who do you want to be?
Yeah, what kind of person are you building towards with these habits?
Because if your habits and your desired identity are clashing,
If they're fighting each other.
it's going to be harder to make those habits stick.
A lot of internal friction there.
Okay, so let's get into the mechanics of how habits work.
All right, let's break it down.
Clear talks about this 4-stage habit loop, and it all starts with a cue.
A trigger.
And our brains are these amazing prediction machines
Always looking for patterns.
trying to figure out what's going to happen next.
Will there be a reward?
Exactly. And it
Yeah.
goes back to our ancestors,
Survival mode.
Their brains were wired to pay attention to cues that meant food or water.
Or danger.
Right. Today, those cues might be different, like a notification on your phone.
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
But the way our brains work is still the same.
We're still looking for those patterns and predicting outcomes.
So once a cue triggers that craving for a reward,
That anticipation.
we move on to the response, which is the habit itself.
The action we take.
And then finally, the reward.
Which tells our brain, hey, was this whole thing worth remembering?
Exactly. But here's the thing. So many of our habits are on autopilot.
We do them without even thinking.
We go through that whole loop unconsciously.
And that's where awareness is so important.
Clear talks about tools like the habit scorecard.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
It's basically making a list of your current habits so you can see them clearly.
Bring them into the light.
And then there's the pointing and calling technique.
Sounds funny.
But it's actually saying out loud what you're doing as you're doing it.
To make yourself more conscious of it.
Exactly. These tools help you step out of that automatic mode.
And start making more deliberate choices.
Which is super empowering because then you can start changing those habits.
You're not just a slave to them anymore.
And this is where it gets really exciting because Clear doesn't just explain how habits work.
He gives us strategies.
Ways to hack this system. Like, one of my favorites is temptation bundling.
Ooh, tell me more about that.
Okay, so it's where you link something you need to do with something you want to do
So you're using your existing desires.
to make it easier to stick to your goals.
That's clever.
Like, let's say you want to stay informed, but you also need to build a daily gratitude practice.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
You could bundle them together, make your coffee, list 3 things you're grateful for.
And then you get to check the news.
Exactly.
I like it. It's like a little reward system.
And remember that study about people making specific plans to exercise?
Oh yeah, they were way more likely to actually do it.
Turns out, having an implementation intention, like I will work out for 30 minutes at 7 a.m. in
Yep.
my living room.
No more vague intentions.
It takes all the guesswork out of it.
It makes it much more likely that you'll actually follow through.
You're not just hoping to exercise.
You have a plan.
You know exactly when and where it's going to happen.
It's scheduled.
And that makes a huge difference.
Definitely.
Okay, we've talked about making those habits stickier.
Building that consistency.
But Clear also emphasizes the power of our environment.
Oh yeah, our surroundings can have a big impact.
Like he gives this great example of the invention of the cash register.
Interesting.
Before that, employee theft was a big problem.
I can imagine.
But once those cash registers were installed...
It made it harder to steal.
Exactly. So it's about designing a world where good habits are the easy choice.
And bad habits are harder to do.
It's like you're setting yourself up for success.
Removing those temptations.
Instead of just relying on willpower.
You're making those good choices the default.
And what does that look like in practice? It could be anything from like decluttering your workspace.
To minimize distractions.
Or unsubscribing from all those tempting email lists.
The ones that make you spend money.
Yeah, or even something as simple as not keeping junk food in the house.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly. It's all about those small changes that make a big difference.
One-time actions that can have lasting benefits.
And Clear even provides a whole list of those one-time actions in the book.
Oh, that's helpful.
Things like setting up automatic savings deposits.
To make saving easier.
Or buying a really good mattress to improve your sleep.
Investing in your rest.
Right. It's about those small changes.
That can have a ripple effect.
Yeah, because we're not just setting those habits and forgetting about them.
Right. We need to track our progress.
Clear talks about habit tracking to stay motivated and see how you're doing.
It's like a feedback loop.
And he suggests simple things like using paper clips.
Paper clips.
Yeah. Every time you complete the habit, you move a paper clip from one jar to another.
Oh, I get it. So you can see how many times you've done it.
Exactly. It's a visual reminder of your progress.
That's pretty cool. But I guess it's important not to get too obsessed with the numbers.
Right. It's all about finding that balance.
Because tracking can be helpful, but
it shouldn't become the main focus.
Like, don't get so caught up in hitting specific numbers that you lose sight of the bigger picture.
Exactly. Because as Clear says,
when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure.
So true.
So how do we stay on track when things get tough?
Well, Clear also highlights the importance of accountability.
Having someone to answer to.
He tells this story about Brian Harris, who created a weight loss contract.
Oh, wow, a contract.
Yeah. He had specific goals, and if he didn't meet them, there were consequences.
That's taking it seriously.
And the consequences weren't just financial.
What else did he do?
Like, he had to wear a rival sports team's hat.
Ouch. That would hurt.
It was designed to hit him where it hurt.
So that external accountability can be a powerful motivator.
Definitely. And it's not just about finding any old habit.
Right. It has to be the right one for you.
Clear talks about the explore-exploit trade-off.
What's that?
It's basically about trying different things.
Experimenting.
And then focusing on what works best for you.
Finding your sweet spot.
Exactly. You don't have to be good at everything.
But you can become great at something.
By figuring out where your strengths and interests intersect.
Like Clear mentioned Scott Adams.
The creator of Dilbert.
Right. He wasn't the best artist or the funniest comedian.
But he was decent at both.
And that combination made him stand out.
Exactly. And that's where that question comes in. What feels like fun to me, but work to others?
Ooh, that's a good one.
It's about finding those activities that you naturally gravitate towards.
The things you could spend hours doing without even realizing it.
Because those are often the areas where you have the most potential to excel.
And when you're building habits around things you enjoy,
it's not about willpower anymore.
It's just about doing what feels natural.
But we all have days when motivation dips.
Even with the perfect habit and a solid plan.
It's just part of being human.
We're not robots.
But Clear says that the difference between professionals and amateurs
is showing up even when you don't feel like it.
Like, think of elite athletes or successful artists.
They have off days too.
But they still find a way to put in the work?
It's that consistency that separates those who achieve their goals.
And Clear also talks about the importance of surrounding yourself with the right people.
Oh yeah, your tribe.
Like joining a culture where your desired behavior is the norm.
It makes it easier to stick with it.
He gives the example of Mike Massimino.
The astronaut.
Yeah. He signed up for a robotics class in college.
What does that have to do with being an astronaut?
Well, it turns out a lot of his classmates in that class ended up becoming astronauts too. Yeah. So it's like that saying, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Your environment influences you.
If you're around people who value hard work and pushing their limits,
It rubs off on you.
exactly. But it's not just about mindless repetition.
We need to be intentional.
Clear also talks about the importance of reflection,
Taking time to think about what's working
regularly reviewing your progress.
and making adjustments along the way.
He gives examples of people like Eliud Kipchoge, the Kenyan runner, and Katie Ledecky, the Olympic swimmer.
They're both incredible athletes.
And they're constantly tracking their training and looking for ways to improve.
They're not afraid to change things up.
So it's about being intentional, paying attention,
But what's working and what's not.
and then being willing to adapt.
Because even the best plans need tweaking sometimes.
Exactly. And remember, building better habits isn't just about achieving external goals.
It's about becoming the person you want to be
Aligning your actions with your values.
and creating a life that feels meaningful.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into atomic habits,
We're just getting started.
we want to leave you with one final thought to ponder.
Get us with it.
Remember that question Clear asks,
Which one?
what feels like fun to me but work to others?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Take some time to reflect on that,
Really think about it.
because the answer might hold the key to unlocking your next great habit.
And setting you on a path to extraordinary results.
Because when you find that intersection between what you enjoy and what others find challenging,
You've tapped into something special
something that can fuel your growth.
and help you achieve incredible things.
So keep exploring
Keep experimenting.
and keep building those atomic habits.
The journey of self-improvement is ongoing.
But with the right tools and mindset,
You can create lasting change.
and become the best version of yourself.
Until next time, keep diving deep. And then there's the 2-minute rule.
Oh, that one sounds almost too simple.
Right. But it's all about making those first steps so easy that you can't say no. Like what, just starting?
Yeah, it's about getting over that initial resistance.
I see, like removing those barriers.
Exactly. So let's say you want to write a book.
That's a big goal.
It is. But with the 2-minute rule, you just start by writing one sentence a day.
Okay, that seems manageable.
Or if you want to win a marathon,
Wow, even bigger goal.
all you have to do is put on your running shoes.
So simple.
But it gets you moving in the right direction.
I like that. Building that momentum,
Now, we've talked about making habits stickier.
getting them to really take hold.
But Clear also emphasizes the power of our environment.
Oh yeah, our surroundings play a big role.
He gives us great example of the invention of the cash register.
Interesting, I hadn't thought about that.
Before cash registers, employee theft was a huge issue.
Makes sense, no way to track everything.
But once those registers were in place, stealing became way harder.
Ah, so it's like designing an environment for success.
Exactly. You're making good habits the default.
And bad habits harder to indulge in.
So instead of relying solely on willpower,
You're setting yourself up for success from the start.
so what could this look like in our daily lives?
Give me some examples.
Well, it could be anything from decluttering your workspace to minimize distractions,
Ah, less visual clutter.
or maybe unsubscribing from those tempting email lists.
The ones that make you want to buy things you don't need.
Exactly. Or even just something as simple as not keeping junk food in the house.
Out of sight, out of mind.
And Clear actually gives a whole list of these one-time actions in the book.
Oh, let us check that out.
Things like setting up automatic savings deposits,
To make saving money effortless.
or buying a high-quality mattress for better sleep.
I could definitely use a new mattress.
Right. It's all about those investments in your future self.
Making those good choices the easy choices.
Now, we're not just setting these habits on autopilot and hoping for the best.
Of course not. We need to track our progress
Clear talks about habit tracking as a way to stay motivated.
and see how we're actually doing.
He even suggests something as simple as using paper clips.
Paper clips, what do you mean?
Every time you complete the habit, you move a paper clip from one jar to another.
Oh, I get it. So you can visually see how many times you've done it.
It's a tangible reminder of your progress.
I can see how that would be motivating, but I imagine it's important not to get too fixated on the numbers.
Absolutely, it's about finding that balance.
Tracking can be helpful, but it shouldn't become the main focus.
It's more about noticing patterns and trends over time.
And as Clear says,
When a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure.
so true. We don't want to lose sight of the bigger picture.
Speaking of staying on track, Clear also highlights the importance of accountability.
Having someone to answer to can definitely help.
He tells this story about Brian Harris, who created a weight loss contract.
A contract for weight loss.
Yeah. He set specific goals, and if he didn't meet them, there were consequences.
He took it seriously.
And the consequences weren't just financial, some were designed to hit him where it hurt.
Ouch. Like what?
Like having to wear a rival sports team's hat.
Oof. I can see how that would sting.
It's all about making those stakes real.
So you're less likely to slip up.
But it's not just about finding any habit, it's about finding the right one for you.
One that fits your life and your goals.
Clear talks about this explore-exploit trade-off.
Explore, exploit. I'm not familiar with that.
It's about trying different things, experimenting.
Like trying on different hats.
And then once you find something that resonates, you focus on that.
You exploit it. You make the most of it.
Exactly. You don't have to be good at everything.
But you can become great at something you enjoy.
By figuring out where your strengths and interests align.
Makes sense. Like Clara mentioned Scott Adams, the creator of Dilbert.
I love Dilbert.
Right. He wasn't the best artist or the funniest comedian.
But he was pretty good at both.
And that unique combination is what made him successful.
Exactly. And that's where that question comes in. What feels like fun to me but work to others?
Ooh, that's a good one to ponder.
It's about finding those things that come naturally to you.
The things you could do for hours without getting bored.
And often those are the areas where you have the most potential.
Because you're intrinsically motivated.
You enjoy the process itself.
But even with the perfect habit and a solid plan, we all have days when motivation dips.
Oh, absolutely.
It's part of being human.
But as Clear points out, the difference between professionals and amateurs.
Is showing up even when you don't feel like it?
They have those days too.
Everyone does.
You just push through it.
And there's something Clear mentions that can help with that.
What's that?
It's about who you surround yourself with.
Oh, your tribe.
Or
Your people.
Yeah. He talks about joining a culture where your desired behavior is like the norm.
Makes it easier to stick with it when everyone's doing it.
Right. He uses the example of Mike Massimino.
The astronaut.
Yeah. He took this robotics class in college.
What's that got to do with space?
Well, tons of his classmates from that class ended up becoming astronauts too. Yeah. It's like that saying, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Your environment shapes you. Big time.
For sure. So if you're around people who, value hard work and learning,
Pushing themselves?
it rubs off on you.
But it's not just about doing the same thing over and over, right?
Nope. It's got to be more than that.
Clear talks about the importance of reflecting on your habits, too.
Making sure they're still working for you.
You got to review your progress and tweak things as you go.
Always be adapting.
And he brings up these amazing athletes like Eliud Kipchoge.
The runner,
Yeah. And Katie Ledecky.
the swimmer.
They're both constantly analyzing their training, looking for ways to get better.
They're not afraid to experiment.
So it's all about paying attention.
Seeing what's working
And what's not working.
and then being open to change.
Because even the best plan needs a little adjustment every now and then.
True. And I think it's important to remember that building better habits isn't just about some external achievement,
It's deeper than that.
It's about becoming the kind of person you want to be.
Living in alignment with your values.
Totally.
So as we're wrapping up this deep dive into atomic habits,
It's been awesome.
we want to leave you with one last thing to think about.
All right, give it to me.
It's that question from James Clear. What feels like fun to me, but work to others?
Oh, that's a powerful question.
Really takes some time to ponder that.
Journal about it even.
Because figuring out that answer,
Might unlock your next great habit.
you might discover your superpower.
Exactly. So keep exploring, everyone.
Maybe experiment it.
Keep building those atomic habits.
Because with the right mindset and tools,
you can really transform your life.
that's it for our Dive Dive this week.
Thanks for joining us.
And keep diving deep.